Hello, I'm Kaz Graham, and this is the Farming Today podcast. Coming up, British strawberries grown all winter long using heat from the Earth's core. And 14 tonnes of illegal meat seized in a single week at Dover. The Port Authority tells us things will only get worse unless the government puts its hand in its pocket.
Last week, we had an entire trailer that had travelled from Romania with over 49 lamb carcasses. They travelled at ambient temperature, unmarked, and covered with a simple black tyre pooling.
We'll have more from the Dover Port Health Authority a little later. First, though, spring is in the air, or looking at the calendar, it certainly should be. And for arable farmers, that means sowing the seeds that will grow into this summer's harvest. Some crops, like winter barley and winter wheat, are already in the ground, but spring planting, or drilling, is now getting underway, depending on where you are in the country. We're going to take a look at spring planting all through this week, and to kick us off, I've been speaking to Anthony Spate, the Senior Cereals and Oilseed Analyst for the AHDB. That's the Agriculture and Horticulture Development Board.
Despite the very wet winter that we've had, winter barley, winter oats, winter oilseed rape, the majority of that is it's all in the ground, and it's all looking spectacular, dare I say. Obviously, farmers are ongoing now with spring drilling, and spring drilling is behind on heavier land, but it's progressing well on lighter soils. But if we just look on a regional level as well from this, in the Midlands and out east, spring barley drilling is largely finished on lighter soils. This is reflecting the relatively good access and earlier drying. But as we head towards the north, to heavier wetter lands in Yorkshire and the northeast, and even parts of the West Midlands, spring drilling remains relatively slow on these heavier, wetter soils, with access to these lands limited, and some fields still need more drying time to allow growers to get onto them.
Yeah, and presumably that delay is down in parts of that extremely wet weather we had at the beginning of this year.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. I mean, we've had one of the wettest Januaries and Februaries on record. So yeah, it's been very, very, very challenging for the domestic grower. And we're finding that these extreme events are becoming more of a common theme for arable farmers.
And is that going to have an impact on when these crops, once they've grown, when they can be harvested? Will we be looking at a later harvest?
Not necessarily. I mean, we can't see any delays so far for harvest as such, and crops are faring relatively well despite that delayed planting that was mentioned.
Now, the war in the Middle East means that fuel prices have just been soaring up, and there are concerns about fertiliser costs as well. Is that going to affect planting?
I mean, it's not really going to impact plantings as such. Obviously, what's going on at the moment, there's a large degree of volatility in fertiliser markets and energy markets. Although that's not going to affect plantings as such, it might actually impact the amount of fertiliser or late season nitrogen rates which are applied to these crops as fertiliser prices soar up. So you could definitely see some growers restricting the amount they are putting on these crops. We could see greater implications, especially on a domestic front, for 27 harvest if we get those fertiliser prices and they still remain high.
Farmers who were producing arable crops last year, some of them got some really low prices, and obviously with that bad weather as well. Do you think some people will have been, weighing up whether to actually go ahead and plant again?
The UK is not a price maker. We're unfortunately a price taker to these global markets. And the global grain market, for the most part, is still very, very well supplied, with supply for this marketing year for grains actually outstripping demand.
So is it worth planting? I mean, have you seen farmers taking that into consideration and deciding not to plant cereals, maybe to do something else instead?
What we've seen actually in our early bird survey, which was published in November, we've actually seen a slight uptick in winter wheat, and we've seen a slight reduction actually in spring plantings.
Anthony Spate from the AHDB. Scientists at the Lincoln Institute for Agri-Food Technology are using geothermal energy to grow crops under glass all year round. Lincolnshire is rich in geothermal energy, and unlike ground source heat pumps, which make use of solar energy stored in the ground, geothermal energy takes its heat from the Earth's core. Turns out it grows really good strawberries all year round. Mary Ward-Lowry spoke to Professor Simon Pearson at the Institute's Rise Home campus in Lincoln.
So this is our new £2.4 million geothermal glasshouse, and it's the UK's first. No fossil fuels used to heat it.
So that means rods straight down?
Straight down. So we're actually stood outside the glasshouse inside a vineyard. There's 18 boreholes, 200 metre deep, which are extracting energy from the earth. You would not know that the energy is being extracted from that vineyard. So it's a renewable energy source where you can get the power from the earth but grow a crop on top of it. So you can use the land for food and get the energy out underneath the land.
So this is where the geothermal rods are, under the vineyard?
They're all in that vineyard there.
Got the red arrows coming overhead. But they're not heating the vineyard?
No, not heating it. So they're vertically down in the vineyard. There's 18 of them. You cannot see them. They're daisy-chained all together to one point, and then they go inside the glasshouse, and we've got this spectacular glasshouse. It's 7 metre tall, and inside it there's a big heat pump, and that's extracting the energy. And what we know from that heat pump, it's got a coefficient performance of 4, so that means for every kilowatt of electric you put in, you get 4 kilowatts of heat out. You can really dramatically reduce the cost of your energy. One of the main issues in the glasshouse sector is heating costs, £250,000 per hectare per year. If we can take that cost down, we can then grow that sector of UK food production. But what we've got to prove here, does it work? Is the energy saving what we say it is? And at the same time, we're trying to grow some spectacularly delicious strawberries.
Go inside then.
Kristen's here. Kristen's the grower who's produced these things.
Oh, it smells of strawberries in here. They're really, really good. Do they not need lots of light as well as heat?
They do need light, and obviously they taste better if last couple of days were sunny weather. But even in the dark, we still get sweet, not very sweet, sweet, and still taste really good.
So it's 7 metres tall, and is there anything particular about the design that's different from an ordinary commercial glasshouse?
Clearly the heating system is different, and it's geothermal. We also got it backed off with an air source heat pump. But we've got on 2 of the compartments, 4 bays here. 2 of them got a very special glass, which reflects infrared radiation. So it's a cooling glass that enables us to keep the vents closed more. You can put more CO2 in, so the crop photosynthesises even more, and then you get stunning flavour.
And that's a new invention for this.
Absolutely,
for this project.
A new invention. First time in the world ever tested.
The quality of the fruit is very good, and the picking is stretched. It's not 5 weeks anymore. It's stretched to 10, 12, 13 weeks. And because plants have more time to supply all the nutrition to the fruit, that's why we get better quality.
So you're driving rods into the ground, 200 metres into the ground. What impact does that have? Are there any negative impacts?
We're not aware of any. If you go deeper, you've got to have licences. The thing that we need to monitor, and we are monitoring, is if we take so much energy out of the ground, does it get cooler? That's unlikely to have any environmental impact, but it might affect the performance of the heat pump over time. So we're monitoring that very carefully for the experiment over the next year.
And is it expensive to create?
The capital costs, they're significant, and that's one of the things that we need to look at. Boreholes themselves are relatively expensive. We've gone 200 metres. If you go deeper, it's a lot more money. So we've gone for a large number of smaller holes. So we felt that was a good compromise in terms of capital costs. You've got to bear in mind it's a research greenhouse, so we can take that risk. If it works, farmers will grab hold of it and start investing in glasshouse production again, which would be fantastic, wouldn't it?
Strawberries in Lincoln, courtesy of Professor Simon Pearson and Technical Resource Manager Christian Lukasic. Now, more government funding for security and extra spot checks is the only way to stem the tide of illegal meat being smuggled into the UK. That's according to Dover Port Health Authority, who say they intercepted more than 14.2 tonnes of illegal meat in the last week of March. It's not just a health risk to those who might eat it, there's also the danger of highly contagious animal diseases like swine fever and foot and mouth disease entering the country in contaminated meat. And with foot and mouth outbreaks in both Greece and Cyprus last month, the threat to livestock here is making farmers increasingly concerned. Lucy Manzano is Head of Public Protection and Port Health for the Dover Port Health Authority, and she's been telling me what kind of meat's being smuggled in.
So we have the full spectrum. So it isn't just pork, we have beef. Being Easter, we're actually seeing quite a lot of lamb coming through at the moment as well. Last week, we had an entire trailer that had travelled from Romania with over 49 lamb carcasses. They travelled at ambient temperature, unmarked, and covered with a simple black tyre pooling. Now, this is particularly concerning when we think of how many borders that trailer would have travelled across to arrive here at Dover. And of course, if we weren't carrying out our spot checks, or if that trailer had arrived when we didn't have a team on duty, it would have, of course, travelled into the UK and our food chain.
And so for that specific week when you had 14.2 tonnes of illegal meat, I mean, how does that compare to other weeks? Was that a particularly bad week?
Well, if we look at March as an example, if we look at March back in 2023, the team removed 6 tonnes in that month. If we jump forward to March 2026, the team removed 21 tonnes. I think what the figures show us is more really about the scale and the importance of having spot checks around a sort of 24-hour period. Because if you think that we're only currently able to fund a service that covers 20% of the time that the port operates, it gives some sort of idea what is coming in at those other times. And what we're finding is that the trade is very much moving around us. They're aware that we're under-resourced. What we are increasingly finding or have become aware of is that the trade are very aware of when the staff are down there and carrying out seizures, and they will then stay back, wait for the teams to stop because we have such limited funding, and then these vehicles will come across.
DEFRA told us that they've increased checks at the border and that they've also secured £3.1 million for Dover Port Health Authority this year alone. Now, I know you say that the seizures are going up, but isn't that why you're seizing more meat? Because you're able to detect it better now than you used to be able to.
We don't have 3.1 million more. That's the baseline figure that has been provided. That only provides 20% operational coverage. We're having to do all that we can to be as smart as we can operationally to try and move the teams round. But that is very limiting. And when I say try to move the teams around, that is in terms of how the trade is coming in. So if you think the port operates 24 hours a day, this trade has the opportunity to come in at any one of those hours. But the funding that DEFRA provide, which hasn't been increased, but we are in talks with them to try and ensure that funding that is proportionate to the risk is put in place moving forward so that we can start to crack down on the scale of illegal meat that is coming through, which is currently greater than our capacity to keep up with it.
What's needed to help address this volume of illegal meat coming into the country? What would help you do your job better?
It's simple. It's appropriate long-term funding. That has to be the platform. And from that, we will be able to really start to crack down, look at enforcement, holding people to account, carrying out quite detailed investigations to really understand where this stuff might be going and to make it very, very difficult for this stuff to continue to come in. That has to be the priority, but we simply cannot do it if we don't have enough boots on the ground.
Lucia Manzano from the Dover Port Health Authority. And that's all from us for today. I'm Kaz Graham. The producer is Rebecca Rooney. And Farming Today is a BBC Audio Bristol production.